This is Kickin' and Streamin' Podcast.
All right. So today, my friends, we are back. And as you will see in the title today, we have sometimes talk a bit of junk about Peacock because that's what we do. We do that from time to time. We talk junk about streaming services that we think are superfluous or are not as sexy and luxurious as the ones that are the mainstream. If you remember, I've said here that the only reason I have Peacock is because they hijacked the Premier League matches. And sometimes some of the most important matches are exclusively streaming on Peacock and not on, you know, regular other channels or whatever. So you have to have Peacock if you're a Chelsea fan like me and you follow the English Premier League. But at the same time, Jojo and I, we've talked about not ever watching a Peacock original, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. We really have. We were like, we don't understand the point of Peacock, and other than for them to, like dump crap into that nobody wants to watch. But here we are. So, it's good to eat crow once in a while. Is that funny? Is that funny that it's eating crow and it's Peacock television? Is that like a I don't know, is that irony or something?
Touche. Nicely done, ma'am. Well, the fact is, as Jojo will always do, Jojo will induce me to watching something that I would never watch. And so,
This is all
Jojo,
my
tell
fault.
us, tell us why you thought Dr. Death was worth watching. Go ahead, Jojo. Tell me.
Well, so Dr. Death is based on a true story, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's something that I've actually followed since 2013, so almost 10 years now. And it happened when we started doing the research for our end of year list, the best of 2021. And this show that we're going to talk about today, Dr. Death, actually came up on two best of lists for the year 2021. And I had no idea that this show existed. I didn't know anything about it at all. I didn't know the stars or anything like that. But seeing it on there and then seeing what it was about and knowing that it was a story that I had been very, very interested in and been following, and obviously had stopped since I didn't know they dramatized it. I was like, I want to give this show a try. I really want to give this show a try. I know it's a Peacock original, but let's try it. And then I watched the first episode and was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then I think by like the third episode, I was like, this might be right up there television, like really, really, really good television. And I think that's when I texted you about that time and was like, Graham, this is good. So that's all my fault, folks, but here we are.
And here's a crazy thing. Like when you texted me and told me, hey man, I'm watching Dr. Death. It's a Peacock original. That's when you lost me right there. I was like, why is she even watching Peacock original? And then we were racking our brains to figure out what we wanted to do. And you're like, Graham, I really like Dr. Death and I think you should give it a try. And I'm like, okay. Georgia says I should try. I'll try it. Man, I have to tell you, I watched the first episode and I realized immediately that I was watching a great show. One is based on a true story. Two, even though some of it has been fictionalized, but it's such a sensational story that it did not need to be deviated a lot from what it was originally. In Joshua Jackson deserves everything
He really
on this
does.
one.
He really, really does.
Every single thing, everything that needs to be given, Joshua Jackson should be nominated for it because he was incredible. And so, with that said, Jojo, please give our audience a synopsis of what Dr. Death is all about.
All right. So this TV, it's a miniseries. It's a Peacock original, and it is based on the true story of Dr. Christopher Duntsch. He is a surgeon in Texas in about late 2000s to early 2010s, who is a neurosurgeon. So this is a fictionalized account of the true story of what happened to him He was essentially I don't really know what to call him other than almost like a sadist who had a medical license. And what he did to a whole bunch of his patients and the failure of authorities to act and how much it took to get any sort of authority to act. And it's this true story. And the funny thing is, there's parts of it that you're going to watch if you don't know anything about the story and think there's no way this is true. This is so over dramatized. But it's actually, if you read about this story, it's actually been toned down a little tiny bit from what actually happened. So yeah, it's a really really fascinating, horrifying story.
Yes, yes, it was horrifying. And again, it was a demonstrable failure on the part of the authorities to take action because this is the United States.
Yes.
Uh, there are a number of reasons why Dr. Death happened. And the number one reason for me is because this is a country where healthcare is for sale. And all you have to do is brand yourself. You don't have to be competent. All you have to do is have the branding to go with it, sell yourself the best you can, be a good marketer of your abilities, even if you don't have those abilities, and you'll thrive. And this is what Christopher Duntsch did.
Dr. Dunst is he is fascinating to me for a lot of reasons. One of which is because in my many hats I've worn through my long life, I've worked with neurosurgeons several times, and I've worked on the periphery of neurosurgery in the field of physical therapy. And so it was very interesting to me to hear the medical terms and knowing what they were talking about, not in the sense of a like a certain neurosurgeon would.
Right?
I'm not pulling that out of my butt, but in the sense of like, oh, this is cool. I know what that is. I know a general idea of what they're going to be doing. And then, the stuff that was going wrong during the surgeries, I was like, oh my God, this guy is terrible.
Yes.
And so, but I originally got interested in the story through Reddit back in 2013 when a magazine, online, and I believe it's still a print magazine called the Texas Observer, printed an article about him, which is covered in the series. So they essentially broke the story of this doctor before anybody was able to do anything about it. And the first article was published in 2013. And I read this first article about this guy and was in horror. There's actually a quote from the article in Texas Observer that I thought encapsulates the doctor really, really well. So the reporter says, one doctor I spoke with, brought in to repair one of Dunk's spinal fusion cases, remarked that it seemed that Dunst had learned everything perfectly just so he could do the opposite. And I
Wow.
thought that just sends chills down your spine.
Yes.
And so I don't know if that comes into what you were talking about with the laterality, because if he learned everything perfectly, but he's doing it the exact opposite, that would certainly
Yeah.
come into play. Or if we're talking about a full-blown psychosis going on with this guy. So I do know that he certainly had the ego of, I don't know, 100,000 people packed into one
Yes.
man,
Yes.
pure narcissism.
Yes.
And what he did to people is unbelievably horrible. I think watching the show will probably make you never want to have surgery if you can ever avoid it. The way the show ends, where they say it will happen again, and is probably happening right now, I think is so important too. Also, it's such an important part of this show and something to really take out of. It's not just the sensationalism of what this guy did. It's the fact that it's happening right now and it's going to keep happening. It could happen to one of your loved ones. It could happen to you. And what do we do to stop it? What do we do to make this not happen?
Well, let's talk about the cast because it seems like, you know, right? So Joshua Jackson was fantastic on this. I mean, this guy was. I know I say this all the time, but this guy was born for this. Seriously.
He is so good in this role. Um he really captures the to me, he really captured the narcissism, the hubris of just a regular neurosurgeon, and then just he was able to tip it over the edge into madness without making it ridiculous. He is brilliant in this, in my opinion.
I believe every aspect of Dr. Death that Joshua Jackson was able to portray, because there was something charming about that guy,
Yes.
about
Yes.
Christopher Duntsch. There
Yes.
was something about him that, unless you knew what you would want to be friends with him. There was something
Absolutely.
about him. There was something about him that made you feel a certain amount of pity.
Yeah, you felt a little bit yep, you felt a little bit sorry for him.
Yeah. But at the
Yep.
same time, there was something about it that made you feel this guy's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't help but admire somebody who is so able, so nimble at getting out of difficult situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Narcissists are amazing.
yes, yes.
When you run across a true, pure narcissist, they are something else.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he Joshua Jackson is so good in this, and just like you said, I mean, his patients did love him, the ones he
Yeah.
didn't kill. There's a lot, and people loved him, and he had, he was jovial with some folks, and he and I do believe, as you said at the beginning, I think of the podcast, that as a researcher, he probably would have been brilliant, and I think the man is not an idiot by
No,
any
no,
means,
no.
by any means, and I think that he, for whatever reason, whatever turned him into surgery, he never should have touched a person, but whatever sent him in that route is a tragedy because really lost a great mind for research.
Christian Slater was funny on this one. I, I wonder if the Doctor is portrayed. Sometimes I think they fuse a lot of different characters together in one person. So there could be qualities in aspects of many different people that they just condensed into one character. But I couldn't help but laugh when this dude was asked, "So, can you tell us what you do?" And he went on for like 5 minutes. Yeah, I went to such and such school and I did this. And I'm like, that, my friend. Yes, yes, it's bloody nailing it, but in a funny way. Like, dude, no one asked you any of that.
She kept trying to
But,
shoot, but,
but,
so Dr. Kirby, right? Dr. Kirby, am I getting the name
yeah,
right? Yeah, Dr. Randall Kirby.
yeah,
So, from past reading and what I've read to catch up on the case a bit, Dr. Kirby, he essentially played Dr. Kirby. That is Dr. Kirby.
really.
And there's a scene where they're on the Texas Observer, and Dr. Death, Dr. Deutsch is making comments, and Dr. Kirby, when he comes in Alec Baldwin's
Yes.
office, and Alec Baldwin is like, "Don't engage,"
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
sends this smart ass comment. That is word for word what he put down back to Dr. Deutsch. So that's him.
That's funny. That's funny stuff, man, because this dude was petty as hell.
Yeah.
And like, to a certain extent, he was the good side of Dr. Death. Like, yeah, a
Yes.
narcissist asshole too, but I don't kill people. I'm not a
Right.
sociopath, you know. Anna Sophia Robb was great as Michelle Sugart. And
She really was. I don't know your feelings on this, but I really felt that she nailed the Texas accent
mhm, yes,
extremely well.
yes,
Um, and kind of the demeanor of the younger Texas woman and the way you have to sort of pussyfoot around things with
Hmm.
men.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed her performance as this. I thought she was great. Also,
I'm
she
with you.
has like Disney princess eyes.
I'm with you. And that Texas accent, somebody told me one time that the Texas accent is sort of like a southern twang while chewing tobacco. Don't tell me I'm not real again. So that's all I know. But yes, she did. She was fantastic with that one. Alec Baldwin was in his A game, especially as a witness. Those
Yes.
last few words, man, he nailed it. He nailed it. Like, because it could be maybe his testimony was not convincing enough to a jury when he put the, as you say, the last nail on the coffin with the Hippocratic oath also says this and that. I would not have. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, this is what a doctor's supposed to take into account. And I wouldn't have done these things. And I think that was the money shot there for Alec Baldwin. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. He was, like you said, he brought his A game to this because I feel like Alec Baldwin can be very spotty in his performances, especially lately. But he was excellent in this. He had the gravitas of an older neurosurgeon, and he also had the ego.
Yes.
But he also had the sort of the diplomacy that Dr. Kirby
Kirby.
lacked. Yeah.
Yes.
So I felt that the chemistry between him and Christian Slater was not something I expected at all, but I thought they had great chemistry because the characters of the two you would think would fight like cats and dogs, and they do, but it is in a way that it's like, yeah, they're fighting like cats and dogs, but they're on each other's side. Like
Yeah.
this is a cause that they both understand, that they both want to be behind, and whatever they don't like about the other one, they're going to put to the side. And at the same time, they're probably going to be friends at the end of this.
Yeah. That this would be the cause that united them for the rest of their lives, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
I think that was the case with the two characters, and it was, yeah, it was a fantastic chemistry. Grace Summer as Kim Morgan, um, you know, she was all right. I liked her entrance with the French song by the pool and stuff. It almost looked like, am I still watching the same thing? Christine actually asked me, like, is this a commercial? And I'm like, no, it's still Dr. Death. I don't know what's happening, but it's still Dr. Death. So that was fantastic. I have to say, Jojo, good eye for you, of course. You
Thank you.
managed to get me to watch a Peacock show. And this is it for us, Jojo. We're going to call it a day today. And we'll be back next week with something else, innit?
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for listening to Kickin' and Streamin' Podcast. If you found value in our content, please subscribe and share. We would also be delighted to hear what you think of this podcast. So please rate us by writing a quick review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all major social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Join the conversation happening today on our Facebook group.